Hello, everyone. We are live. Welcome to A Better Way, a sustainable approach to wellness. Today, we are discussing three vital components of healthy water. We will definitely address water contamination, but why are we not just discussing filtered water? Well, why is it not okay to drink any type of filtered water? We will learn that today. Personally, I don't know anyone who drinks water. And I do know a ton of people who do drink filtered or bottled water. And what if this isn't good enough? So today we're going to disrupt the water industry with important facts about what the type of water you drink is critical to sustainable health. I am Dr. Reed Winnick from Dentistry for Health New York. I am joined with Tammy Koschmidt from Thermography for Health New York and Antonio Cheramuto and Nizar Tordiu of the company PUR2o. They happen to be water treatment professionals. And that's the key point. They're not just somebody talking about water. These are professionals. This is their life. And they specialize in a process that provides safe, healthy, filtered, purified water, which is ionized and remineralized to create alkaline and antioxidant water, which we're going to be discussing later on. And they can get it to you right from your tap.
Thank you, Dr. Winnick. To all of you, we want to acknowledge and congratulate you from the bottom of our hearts for caring enough about your own personal health to be present here with us today. We know your time is precious, so we thank you for these moments, and we hope you enjoy this information as much as we do. You all are the disruptors to mainstream medicine.
Yes, and like us, your goal is to make a difference for yourselves, family, and your community. We want to acknowledge you. We want to acknowledge your greatness because obviously nothing happens without you being present and listening to these educational webinars. So I have a question. Are you frustrated with all the hype about water? Do you wish you could have healthy water in your home without buying all these bottles of water? So for the next 45 minutes or so, we are going to discuss the good and the bad news about water and the vital components of water that makes it healthy, which is key.
Yes. There's going to be 4 questions up that I want you all to just take a minute to answer for yourselves. And we've used these questions to help navigate our awareness about how we're feeling and then how we can get focused on what we can do about what it is we're feeling. And with so many things that are out of our control, you know, the thing that we can control and own is how present we are to what we are feeling, thinking, and implementing in our lives. So question number 1, what water source are you drinking from? This allows you to think about and question the purity of your water. Question number 2, do you have a plan to get healthy water? This question gives you direction, and hopefully you can set up a budget or a financial plan. Number 3, how great would it be if you felt like you were drinking pure, clean, structured water? This type of question opens you up to feeling empowered about what it is that you're drinking. And how would it feel if you were unable to get healthy water? This is a feeling that you can use to redirect your thinking and work on a plan to get what it is that you need. And asking yourself these questions keeps you from spinning your wheels and improves your momentum.
Thank you, Tammy. Tammy and I have experienced many health challenges in our lives. In fact, many challenges. And we've learned that it is a long and winding road to health and being free of disease. And just when you think you have all the answers, more information drops in your lap and you realize something else is now needed to continue your journey of sustainable health. And many people are not aware that from the time I was 6 years old, I was extremely ill. And I was finally diagnosed with Crohn's disease as an adult. And I experienced getting a very healthy appendix removed from my body and multiple other organs and body parts also cut out of me from from 3 subsequent surgeries. And then eventually I was enlightened and realized that the entire medical model was completely flawed and had limited answers, because it treats us like a broken machine and not the whole organism that we really are. I had to learn to be healthy. I learned I needed to follow the same healing laws that govern Mother Nature. And so I spent the next period of my life uncovering a better way. So I and other people like yourself and the people that I love wouldn't have to suffer this way. And this is the work that I do, but none of it really matters unless we have the opportunity to educate and enlighten all of you. So my hope is that what you learned today has a dramatic impact on your life. I know it's been a big impact on my life.
Thank you, Dr. Winnick. I definitely see that you do take a stand for your own health and for your patient's health. I just want to give a little background on me and why water is so important. So I grew up in Michigan, surrounded by water. We have the Great Lakes, plethora of rivers, streams, ponds, and I would look forward to summer all year. It's like all I ever wanted was to just swim in these natural waters. And I loved getting caught in a summer rain because it felt like freedom for me. And when I got older, I learned that our water, our Great Lakes, all these waterways were actually contaminated. The rains were acidic, and my tap water was heavily chlorinated. And I was really bummed out at a really deep level. Like, this struck me because water was everything to me. And I was so sick as a child, the long health history. All I ever really drank was water and tea and, herbal concoctions. So water was a big influence in my life. And in 2001, I came across this book called The Hidden Messages in Water. And it changed the deep level of sadness that I had about water, because I learned that if you can speak loving words of gratitude, you can actually change the water's matrix and clear its negative memories. So it's important to understand that water holds memories. And actually, this topic is like an entire webinar in itself. So I'll just say this: talk to your water the way that you would talk to your plants or your pets, because your words are vibrations, and water will understand your vibes, whether it's good or bad. And this book has amazing photos of how water changes with positive or negative words spoken towards the water. It's truly fascinating, and it's all science-based. The author was a renowned scientist. So I spent years looking for a water system that did everything I needed it to do so that it could get as close to pure nature as possible. And I'm so grateful for Antonio and Nizar's work, because they get it and they did something about it. And we can all benefit from it and share in their work. And I have to just mention that once the atrocity of the Flint, Michigan water supply came out in the news, a few years ago, I immediately sent my sister a PUR2o system. She lives in a neighboring town, and I was actually scared for her. Her husband actually was working for the Department of Water at the time, and he told me that they're actually switching to bromine, or bromine, which is a pesticide, instead of using chlorine. And at the time, he was noticing that his water would bubble. So I just have to say that I actually cringe at the thought of drinking water that hasn't went through the PUR2o system. It's like, once you know something, it's really difficult to ignore it.
That was great information, Tammy. I really appreciate time you spent and giving us that insight about talking to water. And I also know how happy you were the day Antonio arrived to get the water set up in the office and at your home. You've been talking about it nonstop to the team and me and every patient that walked in the door. It was so funny to see how happy and excited you were about something most people would not really think about.
Totally.
And, yeah, and it's interesting because I was having a conversation with somebody this morning, and I want to just bring up this point only because this is the key point of this whole conversation. Because this person said, "Oh, I have a water filter," And I said, oh, well, how do you know it's working? She goes, I don't know. It's got like all these components. And I said, oh, and does it take everything out? She goes, no, I don't think so. And I said, oh, she goes, so I should put things into the water to make it better, is what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, but if you put things into your water to make it, let's say, more absorbable, which is what we'll talk about later on today, then you're actually absorbing all the bad chemicals. And I know Antonio and Mizar will touch on this, but I just need you to understand that, you know, if you're getting like, why am I on this webinar? I drink bottled water from springs and stuff, but there's a reason you're on this webinar, and there's a reason why you're going to hear some great information. So with that, Antonio and Mizar, we have a lot to discuss, but before we get started, I know we're all interested in how did you get started in creating your healthy water system, PUR2o?
This is Antonio, so I'm gonna answer this question first. Yeah, well, this started probably about 30 years ago when I moved from Italy to Toronto, Canada first, and seeing the popularity of the plastic bottles, especially back then, there wasn't much water in bottles. It was mostly soda and stuff, but the plastic was overwhelming. And people didn't really understand the water quality. So they just said, well, it doesn't taste good. I'm going to drink Coke or Pepsi or whatever, soda. In Italy, we already had the issue of water. Bottled water in Italy is from the 50s. So it's before it started here. So it was already something I was thinking about to remediate. And so it started as an environmental mission at the beginning to eliminate these plastic bottles and to improve the water quality, of course, but it was environmental. It suddenly changed about 10 years ago when we met a dentist at an event in New York City at the Javits Center. We were exposing our products for dental offices, and this doctor adamantly came, and sorry about my pronunciation, although I'm here for 35 years, I still don't speak English too.
No, you're doing fine.
So yes, we met this doctor, and she was bragging about her system, which was an electrolysis system. Basically, I talked to her, telling her that yes, we could create something that great, but with a natural process. So we'll talk about the electrolysis process versus our process later, but I immediately recognized the issue, and I talked to her. I went to see her at her office. We tested the water together. And from there, she immediately switched because I gave her all the right answers. And from there, we started a wellness, we call them partners in wellness, because these are all doctors, health coaches, integrative and medical doctors, dentists that joined us in this network because we are providing something healthy, giving the community and our clients, of course, the best water possible.
Yeah, we are thrilled to be merging our ecosystems with you because it's so necessary. Let's get into these questions. We have a lot of great questions for you. So, and whoever wants to answer, Mizar or Antonio, the first question I have is all water created equal?
Mizar, you want to answer?
Well, I can, but you are clearly the expert, so go ahead.
Okay. Clearly, you were mentioning water source. The first question, yeah. It's water source. Everybody should question, where is my water coming from? because we using water not only for drinking, but also for cooking, to make tea, coffee, soups, etc., etc. So water quality is not all the same. Depending where we live, we have a different, like I'm in New Jersey, and we have hard water, arsenic in water, we have iron, depending where you are. Western New Jersey has a lot of arsenic, and that's where we live actually. Versus New York City, for example, that has a very low mineral content, has other issues. A lot of people talk about New York City as having the greatest water. Unfortunately, it's not the case. We have experience. We actually have big issues with our replacing filters because of the infrastructure. Basically, New York City starts with good water, but then the infrastructure destroys it. Therefore, every source is different. So we definitely don't want to be we don't want a cocktail of chemical contaminants in our water, because water, like air, are the only two elements that are vital, and they penetrate your body to the cellular level. So any contaminants present in these waters, whether it's from bottled water, because unfortunately, I have to give you the news, but bottled water is not the answer because of the plastic, the storage in plastic bottles. That's an added contaminant that is coming into your water and you're drinking it. But in general, every water is different. Contaminants, unfortunately, are present in every water because our world is contaminated. Imagine that only 3% of the fresh water on our planet is potable. It's drinkable. So we destroyed our natural resources. And as you were mentioning in the Great Lakes, you did the example because that's where you grew up. And I can tell you from being 20 years in Toronto, we had the same issue because on Lake Ontario, basically they're all connected, those lakes, and the industries been discharging all type of contaminants throughout the years. So things hopefully will get better because of the environmental laws. But again, all type of waters are not all water are the same. That's to answer the question.
Those laws, like when is that going to really kick in? I don't think we'll be around, but that's another story.
Yeah.
We stepped back a few years lately because of politics, but we have to get back on track, and because this is the only place we live in, and we have to take care of it, because if we don't, we're going to pay the consequences.
If I can chime in on that just very quickly. First of all, thank you everybody for joining us. But I often say that water is a finite resource. The same water that the dinosaur drank, that the Romans were bathing in, may very well be the same water that you're drinking out of your glass, your bottle right now. It's finite. It comes down, it flows, it evaporates, and comes down again. And along the way, what it picks up stays in it, because water is the universal solvent. It'll pick everything up. So the water that existed 10,000 years ago on this planet is the same water that we rely on today. And I just think people need to understand that we should never take this resource for granted. Unfortunately, we do. And that's part of our education curve, to let people understand that there's a lot more than just turning on the tap and drinking a glass of water.
Right.
That gives me shivers when you tell me that it goes back to the Romans and the dinosaur ages. I mean, that's, and I'm sure it's holding memory from all that.
It does. It does. It absolutely does. You can't get away from it. But just think about it. Where else? It's just here. It doesn't go anywhere. It stays here, and it has been for eons.
Wow. Thank you. I'm going.
I didn't mean to get you off track. I'm sorry.
Any more good news? Okay. Let's go on. So, I understand drinking water might be okay, but I'm sure putting cooking with tap water or boiled or bottled water is fine, because then the water gets boiled away and it's not really in my, I'm not drinking it. So is that okay?
No, absolutely not. That's a myth. When you're cooking, especially if you're on city water, where the water is being treated with chlorine, ammonia, um, and therefore there's a lot of contaminants in the mixture. When you're actually boiling the water, you're making a higher concentration. So
Oh, goodness.
the steam going up is the good water. That's if you condense the steam, you create distilled water. All the contaminants stay in that pot and they transfer into the good food that you went out your way to buy at the organic food store. Yeah, like your chicken or your organic chicken or your organic vegetables. Um, all the good food that you were out of your way to get to give nutrients, good nutrients to your body, you're spoiling them once you put them in water and boiling them, because you're just transferring all the contaminants from the water to the food.
Makes
What
sense.
about I have people say to me when they drink out of a bottle that, oh, but it's BPA free.
Well, BPA, it's an issue with plastic, and yes, but there's phthalates, there's other contaminants in plastic that are not talked about that unfortunately are part of water. I mean, the plastic bottles derive from oil, and therefore there's a lot more than BPA only, and not
Right.
only BPA, there's much more. So imagine these bottles of water are filled at the source, wherever they are filling them. They go into storage, they go into trucks, they go into stores, in your car, at home. The different temperature changes break them down, and they break down it doesn't matter if it's BPA free, you'll get other things in the water. So it's really the plastic issue. BPA is just a name that it's put out there to distract us. I don't know if recently there are very known brands that publicize the fact that their bottles are really thin because they don't have that much plastic, but in turn they release more contaminants, and they don't tell you that.
Oh my gosh.
Now,
I have one more question that went back a few minutes when you talked about infrastructure. Do you mean the pipes, like in Flint, for instance, it was like all of these old lead pipes? Is that what you mean by infrastructure?
Yes, absolutely. All the pipes and the underground in the old buildings. The water travels a long way before it comes to your tap, and a lot of people talk about lead-free faucets, and that's just the last step. Yes, it's important to have lead-free, but if it's mind-boggling, if you know or think what's before, you wouldn't even wash your hands with that water. That's how. And if you understand that, and you see it, and you test water all the time, like we do, it's challenging. So we face different situation every day, whether it's from well water. We do a lot of that too. Municipal water, that a lot of them have a lot of issues due to infrastructure. Mainly city water, the main issue is infrastructure. So
Okay.
so we can keep talking about water and bottled water, but I just want to drill down a little further. And if you could just tell us, like, what would you say is the most important things to know about your tap water? If you can only say a few things about it, and your bottled water that is really key that the audience really can take home. And when I discuss it, it's like, what happens when it comes to showering or bathing, with the water going through your skin? Can you touch on that a little more, a little deeper?
that's a great question. As you pointed out, everybody concentrates on the drinking water. So they go around with their bottle in their hand, and they're walking around drinking, sipping through the bottle. And they think they put their conscience on the side. So they're feeling good because they're drinking good water, or at least they think. Showering, bathing is actually impacts our body in a big time, because during showering, bathing, our body has no defense. Your skin is your largest organ, and our skin is porous, so therefore absorbs everything. All these contaminants, they go straight to blood circulation through the skin. And when you inhale, when you're showering with hot water, you inhale some volatile organic contaminants that you breathe. They go to your lung and straight to blood circulation again. Imagine athletes that have to go through doping tests. Sometimes they make mistakes. They use a cream that has a banned substance. That will show up in their blood test. Imagine water that's so much more soluble. If there's lead, aluminum, arsenic, chlorine, ammonia, chloramines, you name it, hexavalent chromium. There are tons of names that are unpronounceable, but all these contaminants, they go straight into your body through the shower. When you're drinking the water, you actually have a series of filters that are stopping some of these contaminants. Of course, we don't want to contaminate our body or our organs to protect us, but there is some type of protection when you're drinking versus showering and bathing. There, when you're in the shower, you're basically subject to anything and everything.
Right.
Okay, so the government regulates the municipal water and they say it's safe. So what is the controversy around that?
Well, safe, it means when the government sets legal limits, those are, the water is deemed safe at legal limits. Those are not health limits.
Oh,
Health limits are different. So they play a little bit with the words. So everybody say, oh, but my water, they said that my water is safe. Yes. Did they say it's healthy? That's my question.
Not only that, if I can just add this, that 10 years ago, the acceptable levels of lead were much lower than they are today. Because while the municipalities really do the best job they can, they simply cannot keep up with everything that is in our water. So the government 10 years ago, 15 years ago had one level, and I can't at the moment off the top of my head quote you the number, but it was at one level, and they had to raise that level and still deem it safe because of the amount of lead in water that was not being able to be removed. So by whose standards is the water safe? That it's always something we need to question. Anytime you have a source, just question it.
Right, because so many patients come in and they've had their urine tested, and they have such high levels of lead, and they're so bewildered, about how did that lead get into their body. And I think it's about time that people start really looking at the water supply, because all these microchemicals, they're all additive and they're all very small, and there really isn't a safe, low safe level of like lead or mercury. They just allow it to be safe because, like you said, they can't control it.
Exactly.
What do you mean when you mention I hear the word forever chemicals? What are forever chemicals?
Well, forever chemicals are mainly they're perfluoride. These chemicals are derived basically from fire retardant foams from fire department to extinguishing foams. They're derived from Teflon, from industrial discharge, like the production of the Teflon cookware, for example. But not only that, the non-stick pans that are famous for producing these tough chemicals. These are unfortunately, they are carcinogenic at parts per trillion, and they are called forever chemicals because they're here to stay. It's almost impossible to remove them.
Oh, gosh.
We can remove it at point of use and a point of entry in a residential home. But we need to provide contact time. The name of the game in water filtration in general is contact time. So you select the contaminant and you select the media to remove it. Now, if there's not enough contact time, this contaminant will go through. And this isn't a general rule for all contaminants, but PFAS require extremely high contact time because of the nature of this salt. It's a solvent. It's basically it's really tough to remove. And there are other ones, but these are in the news now, and they're becoming popular because they've been documented. There's hundreds of them that have the same issue.
Got it. I guess I'll ask this question since I'm the dentist in the room. You know, we're taught that patients should drink tap water because fluoride is good for the teeth. Let's just talk about right now when they drink it. Forget about when they just apply it directly on the teeth in the toothpaste. So I'd like to hear from you why fluoride, you know, what does it do for your teeth when you ingest it as water in the water?
Well, fluoride has been linked to autism. It's been linked to neurological disorders. There are studies that are still pending, but the evidence is overwhelming. Historically, fluoride was used during Second World War to numb the population before being invaded. There was Hitler in the Nazi Germany used to do that. They would fluoridate the river going into the city or the town to numb the population. That's historically a fact. But in the modern world, fluoride has been used by municipalities to avoid decay, cavities, and that's the excuse for the using of fluoride. But we now know that causes teeth decay in higher amounts, and it causes much more serious effects neurologically to anyone, but especially to children. They're really exposed to being exposed to fluoride. They have an extreme effect.
I point to the slide here when we talk to our clients about calling poison control. If you read the back of a tube of toothpaste, it's right there. Nobody does because it's a lot of fine print. But if it's swallowed or ingested, like, you know, it tastes good. Kids love the way it tastes. Toddlers and young children don't know any better. They'll swallow this stuff willy-nilly. And it is a poison. So I tell folks, just read the back of the tube and use a natural toothpaste, or, you know, baking soda is kind of gross, but, you know, does the trick and avoids the fluoride.
Yeah, I use baking soda. That's one of my standbys.
Yeah, and when we test your saliva, it's always excellent.
Yeah.
Oh.
We do a lot of saliva testing here, so.
Yeah, another time, another place, we'll discuss that. So does the government really mandate the difference between health limits and legal limit on contaminants in water?
No, they do. They just impose legal limits, and the local water supply that treats the water needs to abide to those laws. Unfortunately, they're not always successful, and they always have to do changes. They have a tough job. I never talk bad about the water suppliers because they have a big challenge. Our water in general doesn't matter where you live, in Italy, in the United States, in Canada, in China, wherever you are, water is not what it's supposed to be anywhere. So they have a big challenge in sending it to your home. So they load it with chlorine and ammonia for disinfection purposes, so that you don't get immediately sick with bacteria. And
Right.
that's important too. But at the same time, these contaminants create byproducts that are really toxic and that can cause serious effects, health effects.
Right. Well, you know, I agree. Number one, the government is challenged with almost everything they do to keep us alive and walking, and you know that's why they have the pharmaceutical companies. And look how challenged they are now with what's going on, you know, with COVID. And I understand. I learned a long time ago. We were talking about lead, and I recall going to a health food store, and the chocolate that we used to buy, the owner said, "Oh, you got to return this chocolate because they had to give it back. It was on a recall." And what happened was the FDA checked the chocolate and said the level of lead was too high.
Wow.
They didn't say there was lead in the chocolate. They just said it was too high because it has to be under a certain number for it to be, you know, utilized and sold to the community. So why do we do these seminars? It's because we have to start looking after ourselves and realize that what they tell us to do, there's another way, there's a better way. And we need to start asking these questions and making our own informed decisions and empowering ourselves to be healthy, because the government isn't going to do it for us. Right or wrong, they don't have the capacity to do it for us. So it's really up to us to do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Let's touch on well water, because so many people, oh, I have well water, you know, that's healthy. Well, I would imagine if it's coming, you know, from deep in the earth, it probably is better, but can you kind of clear that up for us?
Well, our soil, it's a filter. So when it rains, if there are discharges, like on well water, usually people have an oil tank for heating, or they have a propane tank or whatever, and just spilling that fuel on the ground, it makes its way to the water source. Not counting the natural contamination from rocks, like just for an example, northern New Jersey, where I am, northwest, we have natural arsenic in water at higher levels, and therefore we have to remediate for even the natural effects on the water. But talking about man contamination, human contamination, there is a lot, starting from the salt, the chloride that is thrown on the roads to melt the ice in the winter. That's a big contaminant.
Wow.
It's causing a lot of mess.
Let me add this, if you don't mind, Antonio. And again, Dr. Winnick, I'm going to be Debbie Downer over here. But just think about this. We have all of the garbage that gets to our landfills. And while we try to recycle, and those of us who conscientiously do it, do our best to do it. But, you know, people throw hazardous materials away in their garbage. That eventually gets taken to the landfill. And again, we have that cycle. The rainwater comes in, it gets into the ground, that water seeps through that landfill, and whatever contaminants are in there, because it is the universal solvent, will get picked up. Then that water will make its way into the ground, which gets into the wells. So there's just no such thing as pure well water anymore. And you're right, Tammy. People say, oh, I have a well, I'm okay, it's all good. The evils that are found in well water are the same but different. I should say different but the same. It's inevitable. The water just finds the path of least resistance. So from those landfills and from whatever, it gets into our aquifers and then into our wells.
Wow.
Probably not going to want to talk to me anymore, I can tell.
No, this is good. I want my father to hear this because he's well.
That's why you're here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Can you touch on like the difference between alkaline and acidic, and why is that so important?
Yes, well, alkaline water, typically it's water rich in minerals, and that has a higher hydrogen level. So there's more oxygen in the water. Acidic water is water that is lacking oxygen, and it's water that it's lacking minerals typically. And therefore it's not as healthy as water that has minerals in it, or hydrogen, more importantly. So that the pH table gives you 7 as neutral. So anything above 7 is better than having anything below 7. Below 7, acidic water is aggressive water, it's corrosive. It will eat up a copper pipe. So imagine what it can do to your body. A lot of the bottled water on the market, the most famous ones, have that issue. So they are actually very aggressive, and therefore they're not really healthy to consume. So the higher pH is very important to at least drink higher pH water. But I want to point out one thing: pH is only one parameter. So not because your water has a higher pH is great water. It could hide a lot of contaminants too. So it's alkalinity is important because it helps our body control the pH level in our in our body. And probably there you can talk more about it and give us the scientific reasoning behind that. But it's definitely much better to have a higher pH water than acidic water, as you can see from the chart. A lot of foods are acidic, and unfortunately our Western diet is rich in acidic foods. And the best foods that help our body are the vegetables, the fruits, and those are the alkaline food. So therefore, water has the same thing. Acidic water will harm our body because it's corrosive. It will leach minerals out of our body. Alkaline water will help our body work better, will hydrate our body better, will provide electrolytes for all the important purposes that our body does: digestive, cognitive, all type of functions are helped with clean and alkaline water, so pure and alkaline.
So I want to just make sure I understand this. First of all, what you're saying is alkaline water is healthy for your body and makes your body alkaline?
It helps making our body alkaline. Remember, and this is a question that I get all the time, and you say, oh, but our stomach has the acids that basically neutralize the alkaline water that you're drinking. Correct. If you're basically the best results that you get by drinking alkaline water is when you drink away from the meals. It's not going to hurt if you're drinking during meals. It's just normal that when you're eating, your stomach acids work to break down the food, and the same way they neutralize the alkalinity of the water. But if you drink away from meals, and you don't need to drink a lot of water, I want to sip it through your membrane, your stomach membrane, your digestive system will absorb it through the membrane and provide the electrolytes that we need so much for balancing our pH. Our body is constantly fighting to keep at 7.2. Our body cannot go off, not even a point, because we die. So our body is constantly fighting our bad habits to keep so it's challenged, and it's doing all this work to balance the pH in our body. So the alkaline water is one way, but together with the good foods, the vegetables, the fruits, etc., it's not only the water that's going to change it, but it's a big help. So you need to do everything
Right.
to help your body stay alkaline.
Understood. At one point, I want for you to address also, because I used to be one of those people that used to have an alkalizing acidic, a machine that had a process and made the water alkaline. And then it would, turn out it wasn't as alkaline as they said it was, but different story. So I just want to know, so I assume you somehow alkalize your water. How do you do that? That makes it different than the other alkalizing machines out there.
Yes, the machines you're referring to use electrolysis. They're electrical ionizers. That's how they call them. They're basically two metal plates. If you, of course, you're a doctor, you know about electrolysis, but not everybody do. But there's two metal plates that ionize the water. Now, in order to ionize this water, you need dissolved solids in the water. You cannot purify the water before, because otherwise you're sending water without ions and electrolysis cannot happen. Electrolysis ionizes the water. So it raises the pH of the water, but it does it artificially. And because you can't purify the water before, you are actually ionizing contaminants. And what does that mean? It's that you're actually absorbing these contaminants even better, because ionizing means really breaking these contaminants down so that when you drink them, they actually harm your body. Even they are become really toxic, because your body is absorbing it even more. So electrolysis is not the answer to making water alkaline. What we discovered and implemented throughout the years, with the help of the doctors, we didn't do it by ourselves. So we really needed the guidelines of professionals like you to put us on the right route. So we purify the water. So we strip the water out of everything. We bring it to H2O, 000 dissolved solids, because we're stripping the water out of all contaminants. Now, in this process, unfortunately, we are forced to remove minerals. And therefore, we end up with the pure water without any electrolytes. And that's not good either. So we don't want to drink that water, but we establish a base. So we have pure water. Now, from this base, we can make this water great and healthy. So we made it safe first. Now, after walking, now we can run. So we have some components in our system that release calcium, magnesium, and potassium in the form of electrolytes. And at the same time, and that these minerals elevate the pH of the water, making it alkaline. They give great taste to the water for that. But most importantly, they're providing these important electrolytes. And these remineralizing component, I want to point this out, because now alkaline is the buzzword. There's a lot of companies that don't have morals. Unfortunately, they just look for the profit, and they use very cheap, very low quality remineralizing component that unfortunately are contaminated with heavy metals. So you have to be really careful when you remineralize the water. And our remineralizing component is certified free of heavy metals. It's certified to be the healthiest one. And we went many years before we found the right one, the right composition. So once we add the minerals, now we ionize the water. The same minerals, the same beads that are in this component release molecular hydrogen. I'm going to leave molecular hydrogen for you to explain, but molecular hydrogen actually gives the antioxidant property to the water, and therefore, because it's in a form of gas, it will penetrate your body to the cellular level and remove toxins, et cetera, et cetera. But again, I'll leave that to you.
Great. So two things that I've heard you say. Well, one thing really. Well, many things, but this is what stood out. You keep using the word purify, and what people need to really be hearing is that you're saying you're purifying the water. You're not filtering the water, which is a key distinction. So look on the box of your what you bought, and is it a purifier or is it a filter? You know,
Yeah.
when I and if you want to, like, I visualize a filter. You know, you make coffee. I don't drink coffee, but you make coffee and you have a coffee filter. And what's left over is all these big little coffee, you know, whatever you call them.
Grounds.
But what gets through is the coffee, and the coffee is brown. So imagine in your filter system, it's not filtering out everything, and it's letting the little tiny particles of something get through, which we know from biology, even the smallest particles can make a difference to your health. So that's what I heard you say, and that's a really important point.
That's an important distinction. Thank you for bringing it up. Filter is one thing, purifying is another thing. Our system does both. We start with filtering at the beginning because we need to remove, that's a mechanical process. So basically we're removing suspended particles with filtering, like you explained with the coffee is a great example. So we stop rust. Let's make the example of New York City. Unfortunately there's a lot of suspended particles in the water because of the infrastructure. So our filters reduce it to basically nothing. And then we have a component that removes chlorine, chloramines, heavy metals. And then we have a membrane that brings down the particulates and purifies the water because it brings it down to 1,000 of a micron. So we basically are purifying, are processing the water drop by drop. As a matter of fact, our system has a holding tank and the thing that, because without that, you wouldn't have a flow. You would have a drop coming out of your faucet. So that accumulator collects the water, and then when you turn on the faucet, you get a good flow because it's pushed out. There is some air pressure in there so that we can push the water out. But thank you for bringing that up, because filtering and purifying are two distinct things. And there are a lot of the more economical system that you find online or in the box stores are mainly filtering system, not purification system.
Right. Great. You know, I want to just have a little side note. We're approaching the 1 hour mark, and we have a ton more to discuss. And I could go on forever.
I know.
Question and answer. So we're going to stay on until we're done. This is recorded, and I want to just honor your time. If you need to get off, we understand, and we'll send you the replay. So with that said, I just have one more point I want to make. I actually love this slide, and I love this slide because this is something I've seen maybe 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago in dentistry, because what we learned in my type of dentistry is, which is sustainable dentistry, is that it's not really the sugar that causes cavities. It's really the pH of the saliva. And if it's too acidic, you're prone to cavities. And if you're too alkaline, then you're not prone to cavities. So this slide is great, and I appreciate you showing it. Okay, so you touched on molecular hydrogen, and I'm going to discuss that later on and how it benefits the teeth. Is there anything on this slide that you haven't discussed that you want to bring up?
Oh, we talked about when we're adding a molecular hydrogen, which, by the way, it's the smallest molecule in the universe. So we breathe it all the time. In water, it has great antioxidant function because it's basically we're adding an extra electron to the water that goes repairing the free radicals, which are cells that are lacking an electron, and they go around our body, damaging our body. So the molecular hydrogen has a great role in repairing free radicals when you're drinking it, in water especially. Yes, it gives, it gives the possibility of penetrating the cellular membranes and therefore detoxifying. This is one of the great properties that our wellness practitioners love so much. The fact that our water can, through molecular hydrogen, penetrate your body and remove toxins that they've been there for ages. So we are actually able to clean and purify our body by drinking water. Yes, we talked about fighting free radicals, anti-inflammatory. That's very important. It protects the muscle because it's also our electrolytes that are in the water provide muscle stimulation. It's very. There is a great study by the World Health Organization that shows a direct link between heart disease. Our heart is our main muscle. And demineralized water. So water that is lacking minerals, acidic water in general, will actually harm our heart and our muscles in general because of the lack of electrolytes in the water. So there is a distinction in minerals in food and minerals in water. The one in water have an important role, and they act as muscle stimulation.
Would that be the same for distilled water?
Yeah, distilled water is basically harmful. It's good for your steam iron, but not for drinking. So,
yeah.
I have a question because this is what got me so excited. Before I knew about your system, I used to have this little gadget that I would pour my water through so that it would become structured.
Yes.
And on an energetic level, could you explain to them why structured water is so important?
Well, as you said earlier at the beginning, water has memory, right? So by purifying the water, by providing the electrolytes, we are trying to reestablish that memory. That's how we restore. So we are trying to reestablish those main parameters that water has in nature.
Yeah.
So that's all we're doing. We're not doing anything exceptional. We're just trying to remove all the unwanted stuff, contaminants, whatever you want to call it, that are in the water. Once we bring it back to H2O, then we want to restructure it and bring it back to its function. So by giving the water these parameters, water finds the memory itself. So it's like making somebody happy, like singing to somebody, like you said before, talking nicely to somebody, you're calming them. You're doing the same thing by creating the right environmental situation for water to relax and restructure itself. So that's why we call our as a natural process. We don't do anything artificial. It's all done mechanically and naturally.
Go ahead.
It sounds like you make sustainable water.
We do.
Yeah. And I also know that when it's structured, our cells recognize it. So it's even better for our body.
Absolutely.
Also, I didn't hear this being brought up, but I was told a while ago that all of the medications everyone takes, antibiotics, depressants, all these things, end up in our water supply. So how do the medications get cleared from our water, or don't they?
They are. They are removed. Absolutely. We are removing everything, as I said earlier.
Well, right, you are.
So we're basically removing everything. And if there are other challenges, we have components that take care of that. So this brings a great point. Thank you so much for bringing this up. Not every water, like we said in the first slide, is equal. So if I'm treating water in Los Angeles, I'm going to use a certain configuration of filters. If I'm doing water in Miami, I'm going to do something different. We have different temperature in the water. We have different contaminants. We have more challenges because there's algae over there because of the warmer temperatures, things that we don't have up here. But not every water is the same. So our system will accommodate to this. If somebody called me from Nashville, I'm going to ask them, where are you on well water, or are you on city water? Or your city water, give me a zip code. I'm going to find out through the zip code. There are reports that we have access. Everyone actually has access through the internet that can find out exactly the water report for their town. And based on that, we'll select, if we need to, we'll select a component that will take care of the specific contaminant that maybe is not in other type of water. So when people tell me, but there I can get a good reverse osmosis system for $200, but dear, you can't treat, you cannot, this is water filtration or purification. You cannot buy something on the shelf and be good for everybody. There is no way. Water is completely different in a 10-mile distance. How can you structure it? Like, you're not buying a bag of potatoes and they're all the same everywhere. Every water is different, and we need to treat it differently whenever is necessary, of course.
Right.
Well, that's important. I had no idea. That's really important information.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. And by the way, there are different potatoes around the world, and there are different.
That was the wrong example. You're right.
Just wanted to clear that up, okay?
I'll remember for the next webinar.
Okay. Okay. Let's not belabor this point, but we've discussed already bottled water as being an issue. And this looks like a slide showing the different testing that you got from different water. Can you just elaborate on what you're seeing here?
Yes. We basically here we did the pH testing. So we're just using a phenol red, which is a reaction. You use it in the swimming pools to test your pH in your pool. So we used the more renowned bottles, and if you start from the yellow ones are the most acidic. You see the okay, I can name them because they're visible. The Dasani and Aquafina are the most acidic ones. They're the purified water that actually have less contaminants than the other ones. That's why I say no bottled water is perfect, because one has a problem and one has another problem. So these bottled waters, although they're purified, they lack the electrolytes, and therefore the water is acidic, and that's why you see the yellow reaction. So that's water in the low 6 pH, so it's quite corrosive. And then we go to the more neutral ones that are the actually here they're almost all okay. If you go to the far right, the red one, it's neutral. It's the tap water. And then you have 2 other bottled water that are slightly alkaline or neutral, but very close. Then all the way to the left, you see the purple water. That's our PUR2o water. That's the 9.5 pH water that we're providing with our system. And again, here we're just...
It's good the environment. Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to point out that the research shows that diseases, viruses, even cancers, they just love acidic environments. They just eat it up, and that's how they grow and thrive, which is why our body strives to be alkaline, but we really do have a hard time keeping it alkaline because of the water and the food that we drink. So it's acidic water is just not very healthy water.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
Those are the facts. And the facts are we need to treat us like we're a tree, because we know trees don't like acidic water either, because we all basically come from the same ground, from the same earth, and treat us like a tree and do the same thing. You would find that the body is much healthier and will grow and thrive and lay good root systems, et cetera, et cetera. Correct? Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you for agreeing with me. I want to thank the 2 of you. That was excellent information. I know we can keep going for another hour or so with you guys, but I want to just first acknowledge the 2 of you, excuse me, for taking a stand and, not following the status quo, especially in our world today, and being out there, putting yourself out there and making the tough decisions, and doing what you know in your heart to be right. And I appreciate that. So thank you.
That's very humbling, Dr. Winnick. Thank you very much. That touched my heart just now as well. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. And as we actually discussed earlier, we know that there are hormonal effects from the water and plastics, and even Tammy touched a little bit on the medicines that end up in the water. And it's a slow progressing problem that we get from the hormonal changes. It's not like drinking arsenic and you're done. It's very slow and it's cumulative. And what I find is one of the benefits of thermography is that it allows you to see these hormonal imbalances before you even realize them as systemic symptoms created by these chemicals, which is why I believe that thermography is so helpful.
Yes, so I'm going to give a brief overview of what thermography is for anyone that's not familiar with this really cool assessment tool. So there's no pain, there's no radiation, no body contact, non-invasive, one of the best ways that you can have a visual assessment based on your body's temperature, because our body's temperature does not lie. It's there and you see what you get. So thermal imaging allows you to see what you may not yet feel. And you need to let that land with you, because you don't always feel what's brewing in your body. So if you can see what you don't feel, it makes it an early detection tool, and it's great for prevention. And it can detect inflammation, hidden infections, breast disease, lymphatic stagnation, digestive issues, nerve dysfunction, and many other issues. Well, when it comes to water and hormonal issues, there's several things that I see very often. And when I see them, one of the first questions I ask the patient is, what type of water are they drinking? Because as Antonio stated, and I know Dr. Winnick's going to get into, the water is contaminated with all types of endocrine disruptors, and that equals hormonal imbalance. So some of the things I often see are enlarged thyroid, and this typically, you don't feel it, and it typically does not show up in blood work right away. And it could be years before it shows up in your blood work, but your thyroid will be enlarged. And this can be an issue when it comes to fluoride, because fluoride competes with iodine, and your thyroid needs a lot of iodine. There can also be a blockage in the flow systems in your head and neck, whether it's blood, nerve supply, or lymph. And I do have a video that will be on the free gifts page that you can help restore your flow systems and relax the head and the neck. So that'll help. But another complication that's revealed with thermal imaging is enlarged salivary glands. And this will typically be sort of a dumping ground for estrogens that the liver hasn't been able to clear. So this is because of all of the xenohormones that are entering our body through chemicals, plastics, metals, and which is often found in our water. So this is another issue with the salivary glands where fluoride will compete with iodine. Also, another big issue is hormonal imbalance in the breast tissue. Mm-hmm. And this is always a red flag because there's a correlation to estrogen dominance and breast cancer. Kidney distress, this is another interesting finding, and we actually see this when we image the spine, the back of the body. And one of the first questions I ask when I see this is in reference to what type of water the person is drinking, how often do they drink it, and how much. And once again, hormones come into play when it comes to the kidneys. Hormones act as messengers in our body, and they signal when to conserve water and when to excrete it. And your kidneys are doing the work. So your kidneys are essential to regulating fluid volume and also controlling the sodium and the potassium concentrations in your body fluids. So they're ridding your body of excess water by creating urine or conserving water through reabsorption. So even though we're drinking a lot of water, we're still essentially dehydrated on the cellular level. If the water is contaminated or lacks the crystalline structure, which you can read about in the book that I mentioned, our cells may not be absorbing the water. And if it's our extracellular matrix, and this matrix is the fluid between our cells, if that matrix is toxic, we end up having poor cellular communication because of all the toxins that's flowing between the cells. So this affects how healthy our cells will be, which is actually the foundation for our entire health body. So we need our water to be as clean as possible. It affects our hormonal balance, which then affects all systems of our body. And clean water is one of the major components of a healthy foundation. So it can't be an exception. It has to be a priority in our lifestyle. A lot of the women that come to me that are dealing with breast cancer, if they're drinking, shit water, which I'm sorry, most of it is, this is the first thing that I try to change in their life.
Right.
Now, on top of that, going back to hormonal balance, there's a couple of essential oils that I've seen great results with when I'm doing thermal imaging. They balance hormones and they reduce inflammation. There's Claricalm and there's Frankincense Touch. And you can use these for fibroids, hormonal symptoms like hot flashes, and also prostate inflammation. So you'll see that on my gifts page as well. And I only recommend doTERRA because of their purity. They have a team of scientists that they have to make their oils far superior to other companies. It's kind of like what Antonio and Nizar do. They take it to the next level. So if they're the next level in water, doTERRA is the next level in essential oils. So really important that when you're dealing with your health, whatever products you're using, that they're clean and as pure as possible. Antonio, I want to make a switch over to Dr. Winnick because I know he has a lot to say, but can you just tell us about your philosophy and how it integrates with Dr. Winnick as a sustainable dentist?
I can't hear you.
Nizar, did you hear me?
You cut out a little bit. My internet's a little bit shaky.
Okay.
I was asking, why am I so great?
But we all know that, Dr. Winnick.
And how your philosophy lines up with what Dr. Winnick does.
We treat the body as a whole, as Dr. Winnick does, and as you do as well. Your body functions sort of interlocking, and what goes in, if you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out, and you're going to get garbage results. So Dr. Winnick has a sustainable, as he said, mindset with his dentistry. We have the same philosophy that sustainability and wellness go hand in hand. The better we live and eat and drink, the more sustainable we will be as human beings, but also as we put it out there, the more sustainable we hope our footprint is as well. I mean, we can talk about the plastic bottles, we can talk about the environment. I get very charged up about this plastic. And we lost Antonio, but he's actually right here right now. Let me just turn him over here. We'll get him to sit here. You sit here.
I don't know what happened.
I don't know. It's gremlins in the system. So that's how I see it. That the body as a whole, in the planet, that we have to treat as a whole as well. I know that sounds awfully lofty, but for me, the sustainability component is just as important as the health and wellness component.
Of course.
Yeah.
I believe they go hand in hand. It's the health of our planet is the health of our life, or of ourselves. So I feel the water, the reason why, for us, for me in particular, I have to speak for myself, it's almost a mission. It is my business, and it's my livelihood, financially, and but it's also as important the mission part. Like I go to sleep at night and I know I did something. I brought something good to another person today, and that
You
makes
did. Yes. You saved my sister from getting that crappy water that was flowing all through the contaminated pipes. I mean, that alone makes me feel so good.
Well, it makes us feel pretty good too.
Yes.
That was,
and those are the rewards for us. It's not only the financial, but it's mostly we are strong on customer service because our business is being there all the time. I often get, my wife gives me gives me some trouble because I'm constantly responding to people. But people feel that connection. They know that we're there for them, and that makes the difference. That's why people choose PUR2o, because we are there for them, solving it. Because when you're buying a water filtration system or purification system, it's a moving equipment. It's constant. You're cooking, you're drinking, you're brushing your teeth. You're using it all the time. So
Yeah.
always something that can happen. There is always a question, and we always have to be there for them, and that's part of our mission.
Great. You know, Tammy, I thank you for that, guys. I was intrigued by your description that you gave regarding thermography and what you find. You know, one thing that I found really interesting is I have so many patients who say they drink like tons of water all day, and you're telling me if they're not drinking good water, the cells are still dehydrated. I think that's the point, because they think they're doing something good for themselves, and they're doing somewhat. You know, it's always better to drink a lot of water than no water, but they're missing the fact that it affects them on a cellular level, which is what you're talking about, and which is what these guys are talking about in terms of the structuring and the process, which is why we really had them on today, because the key here is what are the healthy components to water that you want to put into the water, not just take out. So I think we really touched on that. But I want to just touch quickly, and again, thank you. There's a bunch of people who are still hanging in with us. So
Yay.
yeah, thank you for being with us and hanging in there. So let's just quickly, you know, change a little bit in terms of how the water and what you're doing by purifying the water, how that helps you from a dental point of view. So let's discuss first xenoestrogens. They're chemicals that mimic estrogen in your body. Xeno means foreign. So xenoestrogens are compounds that act like estrogens from a foreign source. They are man-made chemicals that mimic oxygen, they mimic estrogen, they have estrogen activity, a negative impact on the hormone system, the hormone balance. So let's first review fluoride in water and tooth. And you know, in the dental world, this is a very controversial topic. You'll still hear people, dentists, saying you must have fluoride and all this stuff. And actually, in my practice, we avoid it. I would say 95% of the time. There is one situation where we use spot fluoride to treat small cavities on small children, so they don't need to get drilled and get a filling. And that actually makes moms very happy. And this is a process that we actually had approved by leading holistic pediatric doctors in the city, and they said what you're doing is fine. But fluorine is in the form of fluoride has been added to public water systems as discussed in the US since the 50s, and it's also included in most toothpaste. And it was supposedly added to promote dental health, but research has shown that fluoride does not actually decrease the risk of cavities in adults at any significant level. We're actually presently developing this new cavity testing and prevention program for adults and children, which really looks at the different parameters of saliva, which, if modulated properly, will reduce cavities. So that's really the way that we're handling this whole issue. However, furthermore, there are studies that show that fluoride is a endocrine disruptor that affects the thyroid function, which is what Tammy brought up, and it also affects other glands. In fact, fluoride was previously used as a treatment for hyperthyroidism, which is an overactive thyroid, because of its ability to reduce thyroid hormone production. So also there was a large scale study that reported the rates of hypothyroidism in areas that added fluoride to the water system were actually twice as high compared to areas without added fluoride in the water. And so the most important takeaway here is that fluoride blocks iodine receptors in the thyroid gland. And for those listeners who still have a thyroid, be aware that fluoride competes with iodine in the thyroid gland, and the thyroid will always, almost always, absorb fluoride over iodine. And when this happens, it will block the proper production of thyroid hormones. So in terms of periodontal disease, and that's all about the inflammatory cascade, and it's all about balancing the inflammatory response. But you may also be surprised to learn that hormone surges may make you more vulnerable to gum disease. And here's why. More female hormones like estrogen and progesterone cause more blood to flow to your gums. And that causes them to become more sensitive, and then they overreact to anything that may irritate them. I want to just briefly touch on the molecular hydrogen, H2. And as discussed earlier, this ionizes the water and it makes it more absorbable. So it increases the penetration of the water at a cellular level, which we've already discussed is so important. Oxidative stress is involved in the cause of periodontitis or gum disease. And if you can reduce the oxidative stress by drinking this hydrogen-rich water, that should be beneficial to preventing or helping with periodontal health. And they did a study at Okayama University in Japan where scientists studied the positive effect of the H2 water on aging periodontal tissues. And they found that drinking the H2 water suppressed the harmful effects of oxidative stress or rusting on teeth, tooth enamel, gums, and especially below the gum line in the pockets, which are normally more difficult to reach. So drinking alkaline water infused with the H2 or the molecular hydrogen helps to neutralize the acid and protects our teeth. Remember, it makes the teeth or the saliva less acidic, so they become more alkaline. So this is great news for any of us who enjoy an occasional sweet treat. Okay, it's also packed with minerals.
That would be who?
You can't see, I raised my hand, Tammy. You can't see me.
Okay, good.
I'm in.
You're such a witch. Okay, anyhow, I mean a good witch. How she knew I raised my hand was crazy. Okay, anyhow, it is also packed with minerals for our teeth that need to stay healthy and strong. Okay, so I just want to say that the reason we are bringing this webinar to you is really to disrupt the pattern that you may be in. And our goal is to bring you, the mind body, to a calm energy state. Then we are helping you celebrate the higher energy states of life without suffering. So the three of us, actually the four of us, are really leaders in health and wellness. And these are the things that we do to stay healthy and balanced. And we want to share our experiences that work with you guys so you could stay healthy and balanced also.
Yeah, these are solutions that can help you along your path to wellness and give you ideas for better strategies. You can schedule a thermography session. You can do a women's health session or men's, or even a full body. And as a new patient, you'll get $25 off, which also includes a report of findings, which is a phone review, so that all of your questions can be answered, and we can make recommendations based on your specific thermal images.
Thank you, Tammy. Oh, let me just change my slide. So, question: What if this information could create a breakthrough and give you peace of mind? These are potential pieces of the puzzle to keep yourself and your loved ones healthy during these unsettling times, and I'm sure when things get better in the future. These are the ways that you can create a tremendous shift in your health. I'm just going to read this slide for you guys. You can contact Antonio and Mizar from PUR2o. They have an office, they're in Randolph, New Jersey, but they also have offices in Manhasset, New York, Boca Raton, Florida, McAllen, Texas, Toronto, Canada. Their phone number is 888-393-1828, or you can email them info@PUR2o.com. And that's not a zero, it's like the letter O. And their offer would be for their unit, it would be $1,690 with a free installation or $250 discount if they decide to install it themselves. But if you have any questions, I'm sure they're open to helping you out and, you know, get you through this whole maze of what we call sustainable water.
Yes. And just because they don't have an office near you does not mean that they can't ship it and that you can't have someone install it for you. That's what my sister did. So anything's possible.
Right. And if you need someone to install it, like in a really nice place, like a Hawaii or something, I'll go and do that for you. Okay? Just saying, okay? Just saying. Okay, if you'd like to contact me, Dr. Reed Winnick, we can set up, well, we haven't discussed this much today, but we're doing these complimentary oral microbial assessments, basically looking at the microbiome of some key pathogens in the saliva, which would be not only affecting your gum health, but also affecting other systemic issues that have a inflammatory nature in the rest of the body. My number is 212-973-9425. And my website is www.tfhny.com. And you can contact Thermography for Health New York to schedule a thermography session. You can either call or text 917-743-3767, or you can email hello@thermographyforhealthny.com. And Tammy is giving away a bunch of free gifts. She's has on her website, which I'll give after, she has a Restore the Flow video. She's giving $25 off a thermal scan for new patients. Claricom and frankincense touch information. So to receive these gifts, click the gift link on the webinar replay page, or if you go to www.thermwellness.com. We're also offering a discount code on a magnetic water pick. It's called a HydroFloss. So we find that the research shows it's more effective than a regular water irrigator, the HydroFloss. So their discount code is 14031. And if anyone wants to do a little more testing on their potential pathogens in their mouth, you can contact Oral DNA Company for a laboratory oral microbial assessment. Their website is www.oraldna.com. Boy, that was a mouthful.
Sure was.
Yeah. Okay. So I just want to say that you allowing us to be part of your lives is so important to us. Being able to communicate our life experiences to you is really so important to us. And from the very beginning of our healing journey, I continued to learn so much. And years ago, I never knew you could die from Crohn's disease, which is what I was diagnosed with, until a family friend who refused to use, until a family friend who knew about my success with treating Crohn's disease, but they refused to use the advice I gave them, and they eventually died. And for the people out there that are listening, it isn't that I have this secret sauce and know everything, but I have been helping my patients get healthier for the last 25 years. And so from my heart, my goals for you is to wonder about your current situation and to motivate and inspire you to take action on the information that we discussed today.
Thank you, Dr. Winnick. You know, just my experience in working with you for all of these years, I mean, he's constantly bugging me about my health as well. And of course, we do everything we can to support each other, because it's when you've been sick for a long time and then you get well. For me, my drive becomes to help alleviate suffering. That's really what it all comes down to for me. Antonio or Mizar, if you could just give us a little bit about why you do what you do. I know you've said some things, but maybe you want to just reiterate it.
Well, for me, when I met Antonio, I had been drinking New Jersey water for 47 years, and I said, yeah, no problem, I'm good with this. And he's truly created a water snob, but that's a very positive thing. It's a very positive thing. And just to give you a little background, I come from television news, broadcast journalism, and the heart and soul of what I always wanted to do was to do environmental stories. My father taught me about recycling back in the early 60s, and we have always been so very conscious and conscientious of what we're doing. I'm a first generation American. Maybe that's why I have some old foundations. So I'll go back to the sustainability element. When we first launched, I said we have to be green. Green is kind of a 10 minutes ago word, but it's important for the health aspect of it, but for the health of the planet. I get very fired up about the plastic in the environment. I get very fired up at how negligent people are when there's so much information on the internet about the damage we are doing to our planet. It's what I tell my children as well, and they're adults now, but we had to go to the library, to the research center, and we couldn't take those dusty books home. I said, you've got the world on your desk. Read, do it with caution, make sure you are reading legitimate sites, but there's just so much to be known about plastic and just how horrible and what a scourge it is, not only for the planet, but for our bodies as well. And Tanya had said it earlier about the damages that plastic can cause to our bodies. And I just urge folks as well to be aware of the billions of plastic water bottles that are thrown out and that end up in our waterways, that compromise our environment and then our health. You took what? That was my punchline, silly man. That was my go-to line right there. Well, you did it well for me.
It's all good. It's all good.
It's all good. It's all good. It's why we make good partners.
And actually, it's funny you mentioned it, because my wife makes me now discard my contacts in a little container so that they don't go into the water, so fishes don't get them.
That's very good. I applaud your wife. But it's true. How many water bottles are thrown away capped and half full? We need that water. Remember, I tell you, it's a finite resource.
Right.
Before that plastic breaks down, it's going to be decades. That water is trapped in there. Oh, I could go on, but I'm going to bore you. I get very fired up about
I know. I hate it. I think you and I could talk for hours about this.
Okay.
We'll have our own seminar, the two of us.
Okay. So I want to just go over some brief recap slides. Okay. Can you guys see your recaps, or do you want us to read them?
I can see them.
Okay.
We can see your slide.
You can see it. So can you read your recaps?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Oh, you want me to do it?
Yes.
Okay. Not all water is created equal. That's something that we all have to remember. There is no such thing anymore as pure, safe, and healthy water in nature. We have compromised it everywhere. We've just about, of all the water on this planet, there's only about 3% of the water on Earth is potable, and it's compromised. Water is a finite resource. The same water dinosaurs once drank that flowed through Sumer and Mesopotamia, that's the cradle of civilization, and in which the Romans bathed, it could be the same water in this bottle, in your glass right now. It doesn't go anywhere, it stays here.
Right.
It gives me chills. It gives me chills. I'm telling you, that's intense.
It is. And when I came to that realization, I went, whoa, actually, on our website, we even have a blog about that, because we cannot undervalue the importance of this resource. We simply can't. And unfortunately, we have.
Yeah.
And then alkaline water, while it's extremely healthy, it doesn't make your whole body alkaline. It makes your cells and body function more optimally, not because of the pH, but because of the essential minerals that are in it, which creates a higher pH.
Great. I guess that doesn't work the same with like old wine, right? I guess aged wine.
Oh, you know what, Dr. Winnick, I say the only two things that people should drink are PUR2o water and wine.
There you go. And not coffee.
Wine works too.
I knew I was onto something.
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
But you know, one day we can discuss what really clean wine, because a lot of wine is also tainted with chemicals, and we know.
Oh my goodness. Oh
And
my
we know a great source for really clean wine. So if anyone wants to contact us about that, feel free. Tammy's available all the time for phone calls. Okay. Unless she's floating someplace. Okay. People with underactive thyroid experience a greater occurrence of dental cavities. Fact. Tooth sensitivity, bleeding gums, and even decaying molars. Fluoride blocks iodine receptors in the thyroid. Fact. Hidden gum and tooth infections create systemic inflammation, which affects your immune system and increases your risk of getting an inflammatory disease. Fact.
Thermography allows you to see what you may not yet feel. And this is how you get disease detection and early prevention. Because chronic inflammation can go unnoticed until it actually causes a dysfunction. And hormonal imbalance is part of our flow systems. So work on restoring the flow. And you can do that with essential oils and also by reducing tension in your body. And one of my favorite books, The Hidden Messages in Water by
Tammy, I'm sorry. I'm going to hold it up if you want to take it, because of course we have it here. So if
you have the book.
Of course we do. It is incredible. So keep talking. I'll just hold it up if Dr. Winnick wants to come to us. Of course we do.
Okay.
It's a fascinating little read.
It's The Hidden Messages in Water by Masaru Emoto.
Excellent. Thank you for that, for the support back there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a few, we don't have any time left, but we're still staying to our agreement that we're going to do some Q&A. So let me just pop them on here. Okay, someone is saying, someone said hello. Someone said yes, especially fluoride, I understand, is elevated when you boil it. Yes, thank you. So here's a question. So she said, good day. For periodontal disease, you mentioned to drink alkaline water with molecular, right. So you have, and you can touch on this too, Antonio, but the molecular water, the research shows that molecular water is really good for periodontal disease. But what Antonio was talking about earlier was it's not just the water. So the water should be alkaline also, because if you're in an acidic state, then the body also decays away. So I would look, you need to do both besides purifying your water and everything else we've been discussing for the last hour and 40 minutes. Okay? I think I have one more question. Oh, great question. Antonio, is there a portable travel device?
Yeah, that's a challenge. We did in the past create a system that would be portable. It's not a very good solution because it's not easy to bring, but we do have, if you check on our website, we have the Alkaline Plus jug. If you're traveling or you cannot have access to your PUR2o system at home, what you can do is buy pure water, like distilled water or reverse osmosis water, and pour it in this jug. This jug will has a component that adds the molecular hydrogen, the electrolytes, and it's a portable thing. It's not a permanent solution. It's just something that you will use when you cannot use your permanent system.
We have a lot of college students that use it. We have several families that have our system in their homes that when they travel, believe it or not, they'll take it on the plane with them and take it to their destination because they, well, they're water snobs now too. So that said, it's efficient. You do have to buy distilled water, and it does come in plastic jugs. So, you know, the positive.
It is not a permanent.
No, it's
solution.
not.
It's just something that when you really can't do anything else, you have this jug and you can use it and recreate the water, but you still have to go out there and buy the purified water.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, if I live in a rental and I may be considering moving in the next year, is now not a good time to consider implementing water filtration into my apartment? Question. Or should I wait until I am more settled and own my own home?
Well, we have a crew that just does the moving. So once, this is a warning, once you have our system, you're not going to drink any other water because you get spoiled. It's true. It's everybody has that. I get that feedback all the time, and I know it. So if you decide to install a system in your temporary apartment and you're going to be moving in a year, then go ahead and do it. Next year, we'll disconnect it and reconnect it into your new apartment. And we do this for our clients all the time.
Okay, great. Okay, let me see if I have another question. I think we're done with questions, and I want to thank everyone for being here and hanging in so long. We have, let me just check the chat once more. No, that's it. Well, folks, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us for so long. I totally learned a ton of stuff and look forward to being with you guys in the future. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Tammy.
Bye,
Yes,
bye.
thank you.
Great. We learned a lot of things too, by the way.